All right, let's just jump right in. What if having a small circle of friends isn't some kind of social failure, but actually a deliberate, carefully crafted design for a really happy life? Today, we're going to explore what's called the social architecture of people who thrive not on having tons of connections, but on the depth of those connections. And let me be clear, this is not about loneliness, not at all. It's about a powerful, totally different way of being social. I mean, we've all heard the message, right? That more is always better. You gotta have more friends, go to more events, make more connections. But is that really the only path to happiness? Seriously, that's the big question we're digging into today, and I think you'll find the answer really challenges a lot of the common ideas we have about what it means to be social. So, on one hand, you've got what society tells us is the ideal: a packed social calendar, always connected, always on. But then, there's this other reality, a totally different approach, one that's built on just a few really deep relationships and a strong inner life. That's the blueprint we're going to be exploring here. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to rethink what solitude even means. Then, we'll dive into the core traits of this mindset, looking at everything from relationships to autonomy. And finally, we'll wrap up by uncovering the really unique advantages that come with this way of life. All right, first up, rethinking solitude. The big shift here is to stop seeing it as some kind of social deficit, a lack of something. Instead, think of it as a completely different kind of social design, one that's just built for a different purpose. And that brings us to this really cool core idea: social architecture. Just imagine for a second that you are the architect of your own social life, right? Some people, they build these huge, sprawling mansions with the doors wide open for everyone to come in. But others, they design a cozy, maybe even fortified cabin, a place meant for peace and just a few really trusted guests. The thing is, neither one is wrong. They're just different blueprints for what happiness looks like. Okay, so how does this social architecture actually show up in real life? Well, the very first trait is a focus on what we're calling high-fidelity relationships. And that's all about valuing quality way, way more than quantity. And yeah, high fidelity, just like with music, means it's clear, it's rich, and there's no static. For people with this kind of architecture, a social life isn't a numbers game of collecting contacts on their phone. Nope, it's about investing, and I mean deeply investing in a very select few people. The kind of connection that's built on real trust and genuine understanding. It's all about finding the signal in the noise. I really love this metaphor. It captures the idea perfectly. A wide social net, it catches a lot of things, sure, but it holds them pretty lightly. An anchor chain, though, that holds one thing, but it holds it securely, even when a storm hits. And that's the key. For the solitary individual, relationships are meant to be those anchors. They're there for stability and strength, not just to fill up a room. All right, next up, trait number 2. And here we shift from relationships to something at the very core of the individual. This fundamental, powerful need for autonomy and self-direction. We're calling this one radical autonomy. And look, this is way more than just wanting to be your own boss. It's a really deep-seated need to have your life guided by an internal compass. We're talking about your own values, your own interests, your own rhythms, instead of just conforming to what society expects or what the group wants to do. This is such a great way to put it because it reframes the whole idea of independence. It's not this negative act of rejecting other people, it's a positive act of creation. It's about being the primary artist of your own life. Every single choice is like a brick, deliberately placed in a masterpiece that you and only you are designing. And this focus on autonomy leads us right into our third trait. It's basically the natural result of spending so much time on your own terms. You end up cultivating this incredibly rich and vibrant inner world. Now, this is a really important distinction to make. For the solitary individual, being alone isn't some empty, boring void. It's an active, creative state. It's time spent thinking, exploring ideas, getting lost in a project. See, their solitude isn't defined by what's missing on the outside, but by everything that's being grown and cultivated on the inside. This is the space where new ideas get born, where personal philosophies are really hammered out, far away from the noise of the crowd. Yeah, this quote absolutely nails it. For a lot of people, solitude feels like an empty space that needs to be filled up by other people, by noise, by distraction. But for the solitary person, their mind is a universe just waiting to be explored. Their own thoughts, their own imagination, that's the main event. Okay, so for our final section, we're going to look at two traits that go beyond just simple preference. We're talking about fundamental wiring now. These aren't just choices people make, they're unique strengths that seem to be hardwired right into the social design.
And to really get a handle on these advantages, we kind of have to look at the operating system running in the background. A huge part of that is how these individuals process and use their social energy. This brings us to trait number 4, which you could call a low social metabolism. So take a look at this energy gauge. An extrovert might have this massive social battery, right? They need a ton of interaction to feel charged up. The solitary person, on the other hand, operates with a smaller, much more efficient battery. And let's be clear, this isn't about being antisocial. It's about being energy conscious. They treat their social energy like a precious, limited resource. They're only going to invest it where it gives them the highest return, in real connection and meaning. It's how they avoid social burnout. And this super efficient use of energy leads directly to our fifth and final trait, which is kind of a quiet superpower: heightened observation. Think about it. When you spend less of your energy performing in a social setting and more time just observing, you see more. You catch the subtle shift in someone's tone of voice. You notice the tiny details everyone else misses. You see the patterns hiding just beneath the surface of a conversation. Because they're not trying to be the center of the social storm, they actually have a much clearer view of the entire landscape. This often makes them incredible listeners and really sharp analysts of human nature.
So, when you pull it all together, what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that there isn't just one blueprint for a happy life. Solitude can absolutely be an intentional choice, not some kind of failure. Choosing depth over breadth in your relationships is a totally valid and powerful strategy. And maybe the most important thing is this: understanding that people are just wired differently when it comes to social needs. That's the real foundation for empathy. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In this world that is constantly demanding our connection and attention, what's the hidden power we could all unlock by embracing a little thoughtful, intentional disconnection? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this one.